All right, Kristi, transitioning to you. We have kind of the burning question. I think we've seen it a lot. The question that's been bantered about in various platforms is what do you see as the role of workplace moving forward from a general standpoint, and more specifically, how will you as an architect balance the financial and functional and organizational objectives of your clients with the physical and emotional and cognitive needs of the people they employ?
That's a great question. I think it's multi-layered, and I think the workplace itself, we haven't lost the essence of the workplace as still being a place of purpose, a place where we come together to create and innovate, share ideas. It's a great social space for us in our societies. That is, that's something that's not going to change as we move forward, but how we have to adapt those spaces and how we adapt and adjust through that, I think is going to be the short-term change, and also some long-term changes too. You also brought up the emotional aspects of it too. There's, a lot of discussion on how the physical workspace is going to look. So, we'll have distancing, of course. Yes, maybe there's a little bit lower density, or people come in phased where, certain employees are here for certain times of the week and others are at a different time. But then there's also the kind of trepidation and fear that a lot of people have coming back into the workplace. And so it's very important for the leaders of companies and their spaces to have a strategy for their employees, and to understand that there needs to, not only do we need to look at our workspace through the lens of cleanliness and having sanitization, but we also need to look at it through both empathy and support for our employees too, so that they feel comfortable when they return. And I think, for example, I think at this point in when we look at the workspace, we've always talked about healthy work environments, and well-being, but that is going to be seen completely differently, and with much more emphasis on what is a healthy healthy and safe work environment, and attention to wellness and employees is going to have a very different feel to that. And what happens with that, we talk about the quantitative stuff, which is great. All the data stuff is going to be extremely helpful to inform us on how we need to make changes within the workplace. But it's also reinforcing a bigger picture thing, which is the qualitative aspects of our workspace environments. So, and what I mean by that is, as architects, and certainly with our office, we're always paying a great level of attention to the qualitative aspects of architecture, meaning bringing fresh air into the building, a natural ventilation, access to outdoor spaces. These are the kinds of things that we want to, always bring to our projects, but they're going to be something that, as we think about things like real estate and office space, if those qualitative things are not within some of those real, spaces that are being rented out, then they're going to be seen as less desirable on a very different level now than they ever were before. We're going to want to make high quality environments for workspaces. And I think a big challenge, and it was brought up a little bit before, but a big challenge for many work environments, are things like mechanical systems, and are people going to feel comfortable in hermetically sealed buildings, and what is the process of making sure filters are changed, and we are getting fresh air, and we are getting air changes, and all of our rooms are actually well ventilated. Those are, I think, some major challenges for a lot of different environments for workspace. I can tell you from our perspective, what's interesting, we have 4 offices, 2 in the US and 2 in Germany. Our German offices in Stuttgart and Munich will be going back to work before us here in the US, our Boston and LA office. And they've already started to implement a strategy, which is quite interesting. It's, everyone's not coming back at once. It's going to be a slow process, and it's going to prioritize people who need to be in the office, need to have be in the same space or have meetings together. But in addition, there's like the more tactile things, like we're providing face masks for everyone within our communal areas of our workspace. You know, we have rules about how many people can be in a kitchen. You know, instead of congregating in the mass, it's going to be 2 people instead of 10 people. We've also asked to make sure meetings with outside folks happen outside the office. We're not bringing in people except for employees into the office. And our offices tend to have the great fortune too that we have outdoor space. So, you know, we're going to be moving a lot of meetings outside. And one of the things about the timing of coming back to work is at least we're moving into the spring and summer months, which will facilitate more maybe outdoor meetings, which I think would be fantastic. But those kinds of things, I think I want to, you know, sort of stress upon the workplace environment that, you know, the importance of, you know, first adapting our spaces, but as we look to the future of how we're looking at the work environments is the importance of the qualitative components that we put into the workspace area. And, you know, you know, we often talked about health and well-being. Yes, you want fresh air, and yes, you want natural daylight. Well, of course we do, but not every, you know, we still have so much infrastructure within our cities that don't do that and don't provide that for a lot of our workers. So I think that's going to have a much finer point to it when we look to the future. And I think that's going to affect the market and affect, again, like what spaces in the real estate world will be more desirable versus ones that, you know, are not bringing that health and safety to the office space.
It's great, Kristi. Thank you for your insights. We've got about 20 minutes, so we've got lots of questions, and we'll get right to them. Here's one for all of the panelists right now. Do you see work from home burnout as a contrary trend that will send us actually back to the office?
Well, I'll just jump in on that one because I think we've all felt that a little bit. You know, it's funny because I had a conversation yesterday with a client and they said, oh, looking at these images of our new office, they're like, I'm really missing the office. And I think that's a great point. I mean, not only is there burnout, but I think, you know, we all have different situations at home. And I think I can speak from a parent's perspective that as parents, there's a reason we have a separation between home and work. It's very, you know, all of a sudden we're positioned to merge the two together and try to be the best worker you can be, but also be the best teacher and assistant teacher to your kids and find that time. And it's a real struggle. And I think that's caused a lot of stress. And I think that while there's positives that come out of that as well, I think we're talking about that balance and the struggle with that balance from the workspace a little bit more, and it's met with a much more sensitivity and empathy. But I think it reinforces the fact that, you know, the workplace is not gone. I mean, yes, that we have to make adjustments and changes, but it's not something that is going to go away.